Heading into the weekend, Bitcoin was sitting at $65,000. Then at 1:30 a.m. on the East Coast Saturday night, the timeline exploded. Within 30 minutes, Bitcoin dropped $3,000. Markets hate uncertainty, but look at what happened next. Within 12 hours, Bitcoin was back above the price it was trading when the bomb started falling. Bitcoin is now up on bad news. Geopolitical tension is, in fact, one of Bitcoin's strongest use cases.
I'm currently in Lagos, Nigeria. It's pretty easy to basically live on Bitcoin if you want to.
Merchant adoption grew by 74% in 2025. The Lightning Network, we're seeing monthly volume of over $1 billion.
We're going to win. If you ever are trusting in any institution 100% that is holding your Bitcoin, you're doing it wrong.
We shall overcome with BTC in our wallets.
C3, okay, a millionaire. I'm a young money millionaire.
Hello, and welcome back to Bitcoin News Weekly, coming at you live on the Daily Stack. We are live every day, Monday through Friday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern, bringing you the biggest news in Bitcoin, breaking it all down, and some of the best guests you can find on this X platform. We got to talk about Bitcoin because we just saw a wild weekend, and Bitcoin is surging today, up over 5% at $69,300 at the time of recording. All right, let's break down what happened, what we witnessed over the weekend, because it was truly unprecedented. Heading into the weekend, Bitcoin was sitting at $65,000, and it spent most of February trapped in a tight range between 65 to 70K following the February 5th flash crash. The market was indecisive and coiled like a spring. Then at 1:30 a.m., on the East Coast Saturday night, the timeline exploded as word spread across X that Iran had been hit by a joint US-Israeli strike force. Within 30 minutes, Bitcoin dropped $3,000, eliminating $128 billion in market cap in the blink of an eye. As the largest and most liquid market opened at that hour, Bitcoin took the full impact. Markets hate uncertainty, and nothing creates uncertainty like the threat of a large-scale war at the center of global oil production. Trump has shown a pattern of launching strikes on weekends when traditional markets are closed with the hopes of containing fallout before the Monday market open. Bitcoin doesn't get that luxury as it trades 24/7. But look at what happened next. Within 12 hours, Bitcoin was back above the price it was trading when the bomb started falling. And Bitcoin is now up on bad news. That is the first time we've seen this behavior since the March 2023 regional banking crisis. And it's happening with negative funding, a flat futures basis, and historically elevated skew, the kind of setup that is tinder for a major trend change. Now factor in BlackRock's own research showing that Bitcoin responds best to geopolitical events out of any other asset. After the 2020 US-Iran escalation, Bitcoin rose 20% over the following 60 days, while gold was flat and stocks declined. And this weekend exposed something else entirely. Before the strike, commentator Shanaka Anslam Pereira, who goes viral a bunch on X these days, argued that Iran mines Bitcoin at roughly $1,320 per coin on subsidized electricity, and that a military campaign collapsing Iran's grid would wipe out 2 to 5% of global Bitcoin hash rate overnight. He projected longer block times, spiking fees, and systemic disruption for Bitcoin. Instead, Bitcoin network hash rate is now back over 1 zettahash and still climbing, showing no disruption whatsoever from this weekend's campaign. Bitcoin is not a regional asset. It's not dependent on one grid, one regime, or jurisdiction. That's the whole point. Geopolitical tension is, in fact, one of Bitcoin's strongest use cases. Resilient financial infrastructure without a single point of failure. Decentralized and secure anywhere on the planet. It's time to discuss whether this weekend marked the beginning of a structural shift in how the market treats Bitcoin during global conflict. Is this the moment Bitcoin stops trading like a tech stock and starts trading like the sovereign neutral collateral it has always been? Today, I am very grateful to be joined by my man, Robert Allen, CEO of CoinCube. My man, how you doing?
Rob, it's good to see you, buddy.
Yes. Been a while. We met in El Salvador. Tell the people where you are calling in from today.
Yeah, we did. It's been a few years. We met in El Salvador, and I had an amazing time there. I think that was maybe the second time I went. I've been 2 or 3 times now. I'm currently in Lagos, Nigeria, and I've been enjoying Africa. Yeah, got married, been enjoying the continent here, had a son about a year and change ago. Life has been good. We went to South Africa twice. I got to go to the Adopting Bitcoin Cape Town conference. I was just there a few weeks ago. Very encouraging to meet so many like-minded people. Bitcoin continues to grow, and it's especially interesting that they have, I think, the largest concentration of merchant adoption on the planet, actually. A lot of people don't know that. But they've got Money Badger is the name of the company, and they're doing a lot there with that. It's pretty easy to basically live on Bitcoin if you want to. So yeah, good things happening. Nigeria's been interesting, and built a very good team of engineers and developers here. Got kind of plugged into the scene here. And we've been building some different projects, and then we ended up, I basically kind of scratched my own itch, but I wanted to build a tool to make it easier to self-custody Bitcoin safely. And as I looked around, I was just not happy with the offerings. And so I hard forked the best wallet that I found, which is called Liana. And we've added a lot to that, and we're taking it in a bit of a different direction than where it started. But yeah, so it's been really exciting, and looking forward to people, benefiting from what we're building.
Cool. And this new project is CoinCube.
Yeah, coincube.io. I actually reused the brand. I launched a crypto, sadly, we all have a crypto history, don't we? I had a crypto SaaS product offering that I launched in 2015 at the same domain, coincube.io. We got into Accelerator in Zurich, Switzerland in 2017. We had, I think at the peak, we had maybe around 1,000 users. And then ran into some scaling challenges. And ultimately, I really, when you get close enough to something and you can start to see the fraud and the scams and the nonsense, I took a step back from crypto at large. And also, was impacted by Saifedean's book, The Bitcoin Standard, and other things, and just all culminated in me basically shutting the application off and, calling it quits on that in 2018. And but it was a fun ride, and I learned a lot. But it's a good brand. It's a good brand. So I figured I should utilize it and bring it back for a better purpose.
Absolutely. And so since 2018, you've been in Bitcoin, but you've had multiple other projects too, right? Like you had a show that you were doing. Tell us about some other things that you've done in Bitcoin. I
haven't been lazy, I guess. Yeah, so after the CoinCube project wound down, kind of toward the end of that, I decided my younger brother Chris is, or Uncle Chris as he goes in the show notes and credits and what. Anyway, he was doing basically like film and video editing and all sorts of sort of entertainment related stuff. And we got to talking about Bitcoin. He was already, big into Bitcoin as well. And we decided we wanted to build something around, Bitcoin. And so we did that. We launched it. First episode was very popular. I think it had toward the end of, if you check it today, I think it's well over 300,000 views. So it did pretty well. But then YouTube shadow banned us. And so our view count dropped, and we took a year or so to kind of reevaluate, but we did release like an entire season. And then we decided to try to revamp it, and we launched it again in 2014, I think. Sorry, 2024. But it didn't take off, sadly. So, we tried a few times. I'm proud of it. I think it's pretty well done. I think it didn't get the love that it probably deserved. But we can't work for free forever, so we decided to move on to other things. But all throughout those years, I've been working in software. Worked for a company that was acquired. Sadly, I didn't have equity, but they paid me well. It was a good experience. I worked for a company for a few years that was not Bitcoin related. Kind of just took a step away from Bitcoin and crypto after the CoinCube thing, and then more recently started my own basically like dev studio. So we've done work with different clients, and that's been rewarding. One of them notably is Satlantis, which is a project that a lot of Bitcoiners should know about. If you haven't checked it out, satlantis.io. So I was the CTO for about a year, helped Alex build the MVP and kind of get the thing launched. And then there was a lot of challenges. Nostr is extremely nascent and pretty difficult to build with. And so there was some, kind of pivoting again, but I think they've landed on a pretty decent product offering at this point, and I'm excited.
And actually, we're gonna talk about that. That's in the newsletter. So yeah, let's dive right in because we got a lot to cover today. So we are here to cover the newsletter. Bitcoin News Weekly comes out every single Monday morning, 7 a.m. Eastern, hits your inbox, and then we go live with a new guest each and every week. Today, I'm very grateful to be joined by Robert Allen. And the title of this week's newsletter, In the Midst of Global Conflict, Bitcoin Shows Unexpected Stability. Yeah, we're at over $69,000, higher than when this whole entire conflict erupted over this weekend. We got to talk about this and more. We've got lots of things to discuss. Before we talk about all the conflict and whatnot, let's talk about some of this tech stuff because it's right in your wheelhouse. If we look at the adoption section right up top, we have that. Setlantis. They are a Bitcoin company, and they just announced its evolution into a Bitcoin native events platform, integrating built-in Lightning wallets and supporting both Bitcoin and fiat payments. So they were playing around with being a sort of Nostr Bitcoin native social media, but now they're going fully into the event world. And if you look at their website here, events, calendars, communities. So you were at the beginning of all this, correct?
Yeah. This was started with, Alex and I had some conversations actually at Adopting Bitcoin. I think it's the same conference, the same year that I met you. Mm-hmm. And so that would have been 2023, I think. Yeah. And it just kind of evolved as we got chatting. And I've been friends with Alex. I think we met in 2020. So we've been friends for a while, and just sort of organically happened. I was, available to work on new projects, and we kind of had this brainstorm. I think, in hindsight, we were probably a little naive, and we tried to bite off more than we could chew. And so, when you try to build too much, sometimes you end up building nothing. And that's a bit of where we ended up, is it just a lot of things that were not really catching on. But I think the new direction makes a ton of sense. I think, is it Luma? There's already an events app that has done pretty well, but it's built with one of the shit coins. And so, I like that, this is Bitcoin native. It's also utilizing Nostr, but in a way that I think is quite intelligent, where it's basically allowing you to connect with your friends and bring them into events that you may be interested in, and also connecting with people after events and so on. But I think it's more organic, and it's a unique use case for Nostr, which isn't just purely like another, Twitter clone.
Yeah. I think that was the first iteration was just sort of just another social media platform, and it's just hard to break those network effects of places like X, right? But this is unique, and there are no real event platforms that are Bitcoin native, right? Yeah. And so all over the world, there are events taking place, and some of these things like Stripe don't work there. So having Nostr be sort of like the protocol on which on top this is built, and having Bitcoin, of course, be the payments protocol, then you can open up so many different doors. And as you said, have the Nostr backend with the social media aspect too on top later on. But this seems like a really cool direction that they're going. And I just realized today that you were at the beginning of all that. So pretty cool. Yeah. Pretty cool to see what else they got going on. And so then in other tech news, we have Numo. Numo Pay launches a Bitcoin tap-to-pay Android point-of-sale app powered by Cashew, enabling NFC payments and Lightning support with zero platform fees. So are you into eCash? Have you messed around with it? And do you like it?
I have downloaded a few wallets. I have not gone as far as I need to. I like the idea. I mean, of course, it has its trade-offs, but I think that as we build out this tech stack for Bitcoin, I think there's a place for it. And, in some ways it would be like somewhat equivalent to a custodial Lightning wallet, but the benefit being that, you could potentially point your Cashew wallet at multiple mints, so you can spread your risk around a little bit. And it has really good privacy, which is a huge benefit too. So I'm a big fan. I think with what we're building with CoinCube, we will eventually add an eCash wallet to that. It's probably not super high on priority list because we just integrated with the Breeze SDK. Mm-hmm. So we've got the liquid Breeze SDK going, so you can do very easy, efficient, Lightning payments, and it actually swaps them, and you hold LBTC in the wallet. But that's a really nice kind of active spend wallet that we've added into the product that we're building. But yeah, I think Cashew, is really exciting. I want to add it eventually into what we're building with CoinCube.
Yeah, just listen to the podcast with Marty Bent and Calais, the founder of Cashew and the guy who's pushing eCash the most forward in the Bitcoin space. Really cool podcast talking about how AI has really just pushed his development efforts into hyperspeed, right? And so he's been able to do all these different projects from BitChat to this NumoPay. And what makes NumoPay really cool, it has the same payment experience as tap to pay with a credit card or your phone on using a Visa network or whatever. So the benefits of this is that it is, of course, some of the best privacy that you can get in Bitcoin, right? It works like cash. You don't need to be online. This can send the information to the point of sale system without an internet connection. Tap to pay, of course, and there's a certain threshold, right? If you get to, say, if the point of sale owner gets to, say, 50,000 sats, it can automatically withdraw to a Lightning wallet so that you don't have to worry about the rug pull risk of a Cashew mint. And it's super cool to see how Calais has just been so prolific over the last year because of the AI developments. You as a developer using AI, how are you using it and how has it impacted CoinCube?
It's been tremendous. Yeah, this is a insane time to be alive. I mean, I would have never imagined that I can do what I'm able to do today. Thanks to AI, it's accelerated our development timeline dramatically. I've heard, I think Calais, I did listen. I was maybe a third of the way into that interview yesterday when I finished my workout. And so I'll try to finish it today or tomorrow, but great interview so far. Definitely agree with his take and sort of the way he's framed it out, where you have, ChatGPT was the first big thing. Then you have, like, for me, it was, I have my code editor and I can essentially, chat with an AI and have it work directly in my files and edit them and right. Because for a while, like a lot of early, AI users, it was like you copy some code. Maybe I'm stuck on this bit of code. I can't quite figure out what to do. Paste it into the AI, get some ideas, kind of massage it. But when it came to, okay, I can actually turn an agent loose on this code, that was a big game changer. And, initially for me, I was, and I still am, you got to be cautious, obviously, but these models are getting better and better. It's starting to get kind of scary. But like earlier on, I would say I would have used it for like, okay, maybe I need to write some unit tests, or like I've got a module that works really well in my API and I need to add another set of functionality that, another set of endpoints for the API. Maybe it's 90% similar to this other one. So I'd tell the AI like, hey, build something that looks a bit like this, but for this use. And it would do it pretty well. So, if you guided it more heavily early on, you could still get good results. But now you can talk very high level, about a whole feature. And a lot of times one-shotting, it'll get pretty close. And then, generally I'll go back through, I'll make sure that like the approach and the formatting and everything kind of fits with what I've been building. And maybe I'll have it do a cleanup round, or I'll do some cleanup myself sometimes, but it's tremendous. Yeah. And then of course I was gone on vacation / with my family for 3 weeks. I just got back from Ohio. And anyway, I was kind of half working and half with family. So, in the 3 weeks I was gone, everyone's been freaking out about OpenClaw. And I was aware of it, but I hadn't had time to set it up. So anyway, now I'm looking at that. So far, very, very exciting what I'm seeing there. I think, there's a learning curve there, and it's not as easy as it would need to be mainstream. But if you're a developer or willing to push a little bit, it's definitely something that, get an old computer, get a Mac Mini, et cetera, and go to town and have fun. The potential there is tremendous, I think. So.
And so do you think that coding is going to be sort of eliminated as a job? It's just going to be so simple where somebody can just talk to a computer and have a program be built within the next couple years?
I think we're getting more that way. I mean, it's surprising for me to be saying this, but yeah, I think, for that, maybe the 80th percentile down, unless you really have strong mastery and there's a But I mean, again, I don't know if it's necessarily that jobs will be eliminated across the board. I think it's more like if you don't know how to use AI tools, you'll just be left in the dust because other developers that use them will be way more efficient and effective at what they do. I mean, it's kind of like a crude analogy would be if you're a home builder and you don't use like power tools, you're going to have a hard time staying in business because your cost is going to be a lot higher in terms of labor and the amount of time it takes to finish a project. So, because time to market's a big deal for software. And when there's a lot of question about how long is it actually going to take to deliver this, which there typically is, then there's more risk. So there's more money, financial risk and time risk, and all that's getting compressed. And so I think it's going to be exciting. I do feel a little scared. I mean, there's a part of me that if you talked to me 4 years ago, I felt like I had a high degree of job security because I could write code, and especially with, like, for example, Golang, which is a bit harder. It's a compiled language, and the syntax is a little more difficult than some. So like I felt like I had a decent amount of job security, but now just as a pure coder, I don't really see that. So it's a little scary. Thankfully, I have years of other experience. And I mean, I was an English major, so I've always been an unconventional software developer. But I think it's going to move more in the direction of thinking strategically and being able to orchestrate agents and developers toward goals that make sense and that are actually building tools that are useful. I think we're going to see a massive increase in the output of usable software, which is exciting because, like, I mean, just like, for example, with what we just looked at from Calais, that would have taken, 5 years ago or so, that would have taken a big team, like probably half a year to build, and now he'd build it in, I don't know, a couple of weeks maybe, or whatever it was. So yeah, it's overall exciting. I think this marriage of AI and Bitcoin and Nostr, I think these things are all coming together to propel us forward as a community. And I think we're going to win just because we can, like, our message and what we are offering people is just much better than the existing model. But it's hard to compete with that system because they have huge amounts of resources and engineers. But now that we've got this sort of superpower in our camp, it really just comes down to we need Bitcoiners, more and more Bitcoiners to do podcasts, right? Talk with agents, build things. I think we're going to win. I hope so. I mean, if not, our kids are in for a rough future. So I want to do what I can.
It's certainly the age of the idea guy now, right? Mm-hmm. If you can have a novel idea and also be able to communicate it, not only to other people, but also to machines, and then iterate and continue to try new stuff until you have a functioning product. I mean, yeah, the amount of software just in the last couple of months has just absolutely exploded in terms of just the amount of GitHub pull requests and everything just going up and through the roof. Yeah. And so it's a beautiful time to be alive. It's interesting, and don't be afraid. Yeah. Embrace it. Right. All you can do is embrace it and try to get your hands dirty.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Let's dive into another thing that's exploding, and that's Bitcoin adoption. River publishes a report highlighting booming Bitcoin adoption with institutional accumulation of over 829,000 Bitcoin in 2025, alongside merchant growth and Lightning expansion, despite the 50% price decline. So yeah, this is a great report. River puts out some amazing work, great charts. As we said, 829,000 Bitcoin accumulated by institutions in 2025. Who's selling them? Well, it seems to be long-term holders, and large individual whales are lightening their wallets and handing them over to institutions for that lucrative 100K price mark. But as we know, Bitcoin will go much higher in the future, but this is how Bitcoin spreads. It's a supplied cap asset. So the only way that it gets into new people's hands, especially now that the fact that we're about to hit 20 million Bitcoin mined within 2 weeks, we'll have just 1 million Bitcoin left to be mined over the next 114 years. Absolutely mind blowing. But yes, I mean, when it comes to investment advisors, they're getting more into Bitcoin. 60% of top US banks are building Bitcoin products. And of course, the more companies buying Bitcoin. And what I wanted to highlight here is merchant adoption grew by 74% in 2025.
That's massive.
The Lightning Network, we're seeing monthly volume of over $1 billion by the end of 2025, and over 5 million Lightning transactions happening per month. Many people called Lightning dead, but I think these numbers refute that. Are you a Lightning bull? Do you think that we are entering into a new golden age of the Lightning Network?
Yeah, 100%. And I was pretty early into testing out Lightning. I've run a couple nodes. Early on, it was like I was able to successfully set up a node, but it was not easy to do. And then having to manage channels was a pain in the ass. I generally I don't think I even have an active Lightning node at the moment because it is a lot of work. And I think, early on there was this idea that like everyone's going to get yield on their Bitcoin. We're all going to earn with these nodes. But the reality is you have to have economic activity. So if you're just some dude who spins up a node, you're not going to be connected in a way that makes a lot of sense. Now, there are tools that are like was it Magma or one of the tools by that company that has Magma. I'm blanking on the name. Amboss. Thank you. So Amboss, I think, has a tool now that, theoretically can take your node and put it to work, and you can actually earn, some quote yield or whatever you want to call that. But, still a little bit nascent in terms of how that all works. But the bigger picture, which I think does make a lot of sense, and I've always felt like this is true for Lightning, is at a minimum, it's going to be the layer that connects. It's like the connective tissue that connects all these different exchanges and wallets and merchants and if that is ultimately the majority of what it is, then it's still going to be tremendously useful. In other words, like if it replaces, Swift and sort of all of these settlement layers, Visa to some degree, or at least the bigger movements, maybe not the actual credit card charge part, But even then, I think what's interesting is like with what we've done with the Breeze SDK, you can hold, LBTC. And then you just do a little swap anytime. So you're still able to use Lightning and have that convenience, but you don't have the channel management and all of that. And you still have a decent amount of privacy because you're holding LBTC, which gets swapped out. So yeah, I think it's tremendous. I think we still have a lot to like. I think there's plenty more that's going to happen. That's going to kind of blow our minds with Lightning. And I'm glad to see, because there was a lot of naysayers and it is complicated and difficult to use. But if there's enough value, which I think there clearly is in the protocol, then it will continue to grow. And then we'll maybe use Cashew or other layers above it at some point to add additional sort of extensibility to it. But it's tremendous and very encouraging to see that it's finally starting to make sense for a lot of things. So
yeah, and I think that massive volume spike up to over $1 billion a month is because exchanges are using it, right? That's the real way that they're getting these massive numbers. But that's fine. I mean, having the whole entire Bitcoin network connected over Lightning is a beautiful thing. And yeah, let it run in the background. I mean, we still use it. I still use it every time I want to pay for something in Bitcoin. Of course, I'm paying with Lightning, right? So it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And if you haven't used it yourself, go download a wallet, right? Like, go have some fun. You spend your Bitcoin, experiment, mess around.
100%.
Heading over to the regulation section. So the Netherlands was considering a 36% unrealized gains tax. But just this last week, we saw the finance minister step back and say something went seriously wrong here, and confirms that the amendments to the Box 3 wealth tax are forthcoming. So a couple of weeks ago, we highlighted this on our X page, Bitcoin News, talking about the coming unrealized gains tax. And then when the House of Representatives in the Netherlands passed it, we posted and it blew up, got over 6 million impressions. And many people from the Netherlands were highlighting the fact that, wow, the international crowd over on X is like scoffing at us, whereas this is not barely being mentioned at all within the Netherlands media. Well, I do think that because of the efforts of not just Bitcoin News, but many other people on Bitcoin Twitter, crypto Twitter, whatever, were talking about this and spreading the word, it did make the government stand back and say, oh, wow, I guess we don't have the political will to get this to move forward. And the unrealized gains tax, which is just an absolute joke, has been, as of right now, put on hiatus. What do you think about unrealized gains taxes, and do you think that they are coming to a country near you?
Well, I mean, they clearly are going to try. I mean, it's one of the more insane things they've tried to do. I'm hopeful that there will just be, throughout the last few decades, the quality of life for a lot of people has declined a lot. And I think maybe we're going to hit a point where people are just like, I don't have anything to lose. Enough is enough. And, if they push too hard, I think there could be tax protests. I mean, I was just home in Ohio, and I had just sort of a normal Ohio dude who's my cousin's husband. And he was basically, threatening to stop paying his taxes. And this is just like a salt of the earth dude who would not be that kind of guy. And he's talking about, those people are working together on doing this. And, so anyway, I hope this is like a shot across the bow that is not tried again, because it's crazy and scary. And I mean, they're just going to drive capital and money and investors and wealth out of their country if they do this, because why would you stay there and be treated like this? So.
And we're already seeing it in Europe. Many Europeans are fleeing to Dubai, and Dubai was just in the middle of this whole entire war zone, still is. People are paying $500,000 to get on a flight out of Dubai right now. The airport is an absolute standstill, and it's not looking pretty. Next story we're going to talk about is Mt. Gox, and they are trying to do a hard fork to get some of that Bitcoin back that they lost. But that just highlights the fact that you need to trust your exchange where you get your Bitcoin. And that is why we advise you head over to Rhino. Getting access to Bitcoin financial services has been slow, clunky, and scattered across multiple platforms in the past, but Rhino is changing that. Rhino is a next generation Bitcoin banking app designed to handle all of your Bitcoin needs in one place. Here's what you can do with Rhino. Of course, you can buy Bitcoin with some of the lowest fees anywhere, make payments over the Lightning Network, as we were just talking about, send cash globally, fast and easy to friends or family anywhere in the world. And of course, you can DCA, set up automatic savings so you stack sats on your schedule and build wealth over time. This is just the beginning. Soon with Rhino, you'll be able to pay bills, direct deposit, borrow against your Bitcoin, and even save for retirement all within one app. And unlike Mt. Gox, security is a top priority when it comes to Rhino. With Rhino, they protect your Bitcoin with biometric verification, 24/7 fraud protection, and the confidence of knowing your Bitcoin is never, ever rehypothecated. For long-term users, people who have a Casa multi-sig, you can use Rhino as one of your keys for your 3 of 5 key multi-sig. So go today to rhinobitcoin.com. Download it on iOS or Android. Try it out. Use the code Bitcoin News, one word, Bitcoin News, and Rhino will drop you $10 of free Bitcoin into your account just for getting started. Rhino is built to keep your Bitcoin in your control every minute of every day. All right. So yes, let's talk about this Mt. Gox story. Mt. Gox was a little bit before your time into Bitcoin?
It's basically when I started paying attention. So yeah, it was a little before I was investing and active, but yeah.
So Mark Karapellis, former CEO of Mt. Gox, proposes a Bitcoin hard fork to recover 79,000 Bitcoin from a dormant address tied to the exchange's 2011 attack. So he wants to do this. He put out a proposal. And he said, I opened a pull request on Bitcoin Core to discuss a one-time consensus rule that would allow the 79,000 Bitcoin stolen in 2011 to be recovered and returned to creditors. What's your immediate reaction to this?
Terrible idea.
Yes.
I mean, you start doing this, and then it's another one and another exchange and another hack, and then a government decides, we don't like this company or this person or this country. No, that's
horrible idea. And if you look at
totally antithetical to Bitcoin.
Look at the comments, a lot of GFYs. No, this will never happen. And it's just funny that he would even have the gall to come out and propose such a thing.
Oh my goodness! Yeah,
pretty nuts.
I mean, I thought when I saw the headline, it's like you try to put yourself in someone else's shoes. I mean, if I was sitting on 80,000 Bitcoin and it got swiped, now granted, most of it wasn't really his anyway, but nonetheless, I can definitely understand why he'd love to live in a universe where he could get it back. But I mean, it's a terrible idea.
Yeah, you got to shoot your shot, I guess, if you Just the 80,000 Bitcoin just sitting there out of your control and try to get back. But no one has any desire to do that whatsoever.
Terrible.
And another story of grand incompetence, not only Mt. Gox, but also looking at South Korea. Their National Tax Service accidentally published an unredacted seed phrase in a press release, allowing attackers to drain 4 million PRTG tokens, whatever that is, but it was worth $5 million. So South Korea, their tax service thought they were so cool, putting out this announcement that they had seized some tokens, but they put out a ledger with the seed phrase, right? With the picture like that. And somebody swiped it like, it's so nuts how when anybody reveals a seed phrase, how quickly their funds are just swiped.
Yeah. Someone had a good day today.
Someone had a good day.
It wasn't the Korean government. Well, this just kind of dovetails with what I said earlier. I think we're going to win because so many government people are just the bottom of the barrel in terms of intelligence and ability. And, there's exceptions, of course, but that's just case in point. This is what we're dealing with here.
This is what we're dealing with. All right. So now let's head over to the market section. And what was funny, a parallel that I drew this weekend was it wasn't until the 2022-23 crash that BlackRock decided, hey, we want to go all in and raise the Bitcoin flag and go up against the government and make sure that Bitcoin ETFs are made possible. And now we've had this 50% crash in Bitcoin. And now we see all the big banks, Morgan Stanley and Citigroup, coming out that they want to do major banking stuff when it comes to Bitcoin. Morgan Stanley applies to the OCC to launch the Morgan Stanley Digital Trust National Association, a crypto-focused national trust bank, signaling deeper expansion into regulated digital asset custody and services. When you started in Bitcoin, did you think that Morgan Stanley would one day custody Bitcoin for its customers?
Yeah, I think I did, honestly, because if this is going to be what it is, then everyone's going to use it, including Morgan Stanley. With that said, I would prefer that we have Bitcoin solutions that are built by Bitcoiners that basically obsolete some of these old institutions. That's why I'm building CoinCube. We need a new breed of builders and thinkers, people who are philosophically aligned with freedom. And all of these banks and KYC and they're basically extensions of the government to some degree. And so I'd love to see all this supplanted, but no, it's not surprising to me. And I guess in some ways you could say it's maybe at least a sign that, we're winning, that they're starting to come on board more and more. So
do you think that it has the ability to be subversive, to subvert Bitcoin's power if these banks get involved and start custodying Bitcoin? Do we need to have the majority of coins in the hands of individuals for Bitcoin to keep its powers?
Yeah, I think if Bitcoin is just in people's bank accounts and it's fully KYC'd and they're potentially taxed out the butt on it, and surveilled and tracked and everything, then we've lost and we've completely lost the plot. It doesn't really, I guess in that universe, at least you could argue that there is a bit of a constraint on the money supply, perhaps. And so maybe it's better than no Bitcoin at all. But the better world for me and in my view is people have self-custody. They know how to handle multi-sig wallets, and they have, like we're building inheritance and things into what we're building with CoinCube, but it's all done in a self-sovereign way. And, if you want to bring in third parties, like perhaps for some kind of collaborative custody model, we're going to allow that down the line. We'll build that in as well. But if you ever are trusting in any institution 100% that is holding your Bitcoin, you're doing it wrong. And, we need Bitcoin to be working such that we can free ourselves from the income tax and some of these onerous taxes. And we don't get there if we're just kind of plugged into the old system and adding Bitcoin to it. So I think it's an existential risk. And this is one of the reasons why I'm trying to do what I'm doing, because more companies need to be building in a self-sovereign way. terms of what we have for Bitcoin. So yeah, the battle's not over.
Yeah, and in terms of Bitcoin media and Bitcoin narratives, we need to be talking more about self-custody, being sovereign with your own money, being able to take it anytime, anywhere you want to go with it. It's very important. I think in the last year or so, we've gotten really swept up, of course, with these treasury companies and with Bitcoin presidency, blah, blah, blah. But we've forgot about the fact that Bitcoin is really the most powerful for the individual. And if you don't take custody of your Bitcoin, you're giving up those superpowers to somebody else. This was a financial asset designed for the individual to take control of. So learn how to use it, mess around with it, and be self-sovereign with your Bitcoin. So important. And I'm glad to hear that you are helping build the tech to make that easier, more simple, and more ubiquitous within the Bitcoin ecosystem. Now we got to highlight the court-appointed admin overseeing Terraform Labs wind down has sued Jane Street, the Wall Street firm, alleging that the firm used insider information to front-run trades and hasten the company's collapse, and is now seeking damages. So what does this mean? So of course, Terraform Labs was Do Kwon's company who back in 21-22 had a stable coin that had a market cap of over $40 billion. It was an algorithmic stable coin. And if you read the white paper for that one, it was pretty clear that this was a Rube Goldberg machine that was going to blow up one day. Well, it turns out that Jane Street had a new employee who was a former intern of Terraform Labs, who was giving Jane Street inside information as to what was going on behind the scenes at Terraform with Do Kwon. And one weekend in May 2022, Terraform withdrew $150 million from some liquidity pool. And within 10 minutes, Jane Street withdrew $80 million. And as soon as those two parties withdrew from that liquidity pool, it was a quick collapse, wiping out $40 billion. And so now they're being sued by the court-appointed admin for insider trading. And many people have claimed that Jane Street is the firm that is doing the 10 a.m. slam over the last year and a half, 2 years. Ever since the Bitcoin ETFs were created, they are an authorized participant. They are the ones who take in the dollars and then are able to issue shares for these ETFs and purchase the Bitcoin. And so there's a lot of machinations and people casting blame on Jane Street. It does seem as if blame has been tossed around like a hot potato in this bear market, going from Wintermute to Binance and now to Jane Street. Have you heard about the story, and do you put any weight into, was Jane Street manipulating the price of Bitcoin?
Yeah, I've read a bit on this. I think it's likely that they were. I think this is an existential threat to Bitcoin. The fact that they could potentially be naked shorting Bitcoin. In which they were, I don't know if Jane Street was, but, I worked in precious metals with Peter Schiff before I got into Bitcoin. I was a gold broker in New York. And so I was, intimately aware of how things were going in that market and reading the news all the time and following it. And JP Morgan was naked shorting silver and was doing it for many years. And they were effectively able to suppress the price of gold and silver for, at least a decade or so, 15 years, I think. Well, probably more than that. But I mean, from when I was trading precious metals in like 2010, let's say, until 2015, 2016 is when that market finally was able to find some price discovery that, was likely needed for many, many, many years. So for them to try the same tricks with Bitcoin is not surprising. And that's one of the downsides of the paper Bitcoin summer and all these people freaking out about these companies and yield on Bitcoin and, I thankfully did not get all hyped and caught up into all of that. And I think it's inevitable. So I don't stress about it too much. And I'm hopeful that because Bitcoin is the easiest money to settle and have finality of settlement, that we will avoid some of what we saw in precious metals, but it's not a good thing. And if you really care about Bitcoin and you understand the mission, you should not be buying, everyone loves strategy. I wouldn't buy that. I wouldn't buy any of these paper Bitcoin options. I would buy real Bitcoin and self-custody it. That's what you need to do if you want to win in the way that we're hoping to.
Yes, and speaking of people not fans of strategy, strategy has become the world's most shorted stock amid approximately $7 billion in unrealized Bitcoin-related losses. The most shorted stock in the world. Michael Saylor is fighting against the Wall Street naysayers. And yeah, they just recorded 7 months in a row of downward price action, 7 red monthly candles, pretty brutal. And so these short sellers have been making hay off of this trade. It was really kicked off by Jim Chanos last year, back when treasury companies were all the rage and a lot of people called him crazy. Well, in terms of trades, he won that one. And he's since closed that position, but still many people are piled on this. And maybe that's a sign of things changing, right? That now that MSTR is the most shorted stock in the world, maybe that's a sign of a bottom and things can turn around now.
Yeah.
But you're not a strategy fan.
No, I mean, I early on, I think a lot of us got excited, like, oh, Wall Street's here and there's money coming in and we're going to pump the price and whatever. But now, ironically, given what we know about Jane Street and what's been going on, it's possible that this has actually had the opposite effect. It's actually suppressed the price. And no, I think, for what it is, there could be worse things, I guess, perhaps, than strategy. But I don't think Michael Saylor really understands Bitcoin, or maybe he understands it and he's just, playing a political game. But he talks about Bitcoin being, pristine collateral and all of this stuff. And so the idea being like, never spend your Bitcoin, don't use it, which is antithetical to peer-to-peer electronic cash. I mean, granted, I understand that cash in that sentence could mean like a bearer asset, but nonetheless, the idea here is that this is money that people can trade without asking permission. And if you're holding the stock, you have to ask permission. There's all sorts of government regulators and entities that are looking over their shoulders and over your shoulders. So it's not Bitcoin the way it was designed to be used. And I think it's ultimately probably a net negative.
Fighting words for some people in the Bitcoin community, but I think it needs to be said, right? Especially when we see the price action here and the fact that they keep diluting shareholders of MSTR in order to pay the dividends of and buy Bitcoin to fund these preferred stocks. So I think it will one day turn around when Bitcoin goes back up again. But again, it's to whose benefit, right? We see a lot of insider trading, not insider trading, but insider selling when it comes to MSTR. So they're definitely making money. The question is, would you be better off just holding cold storage Bitcoin? And over the long run, I think both you and I would vote yes. Yeah. Another company that is holding Bitcoin itself is Block. They just upped their Bitcoin holdings by 103 BTC to 8,883 Bitcoin. But this also comes with the news that they have slashed 40% of its workforce last Thursday, announcing that as the company pivots towards AI, they do not need so many people working there. Did you see this news? And what do you think is going on here?
Yeah, I did see it. And I think it's pretty clear that Jack, he's a smart guy. He's been using AI tools. He realizes that, you don't need as many people. If you have some decent engineers, which I'm sure they do, you give the better engineers AI agent, in a Mac Mini or whatever, you give them a couple agent computers and you work with them on frameworks and processes for facilitating the use of those tools and those agents. And yeah, you don't need all the developers. I mean, it's just, it would be the same as like if you had, back in the day, you're building houses with hammers and now you walk on the construction site with some nail guns. Like you're gonna fire some people. You don't need all the people using hammers. You got nail guns. So
I don't know, man. You ever see those Amish build a barn? They're pretty good at it.
That's true. They are. Maybe we all screwed up. That's where we went wrong.
They can do it pretty fast. Yeah. Pretty wild news, of course. Anytime a company cuts 40% of their workforce, this is a public company. This is not some mom and pop shop in the back. No, they're the real deal. And I mean, some people are blaming it on the fact that they vastly overhired during the COVID years. They went from 3,000 employees, I think in 2019 to over 12,000 at their peak. And now they're paring that back down. And I think a big problem, as I've stated previously on Friday's stream, is that they have multiple companies under Block, right? And one of them being Square, another one being Cash App, and one, of course, Square is the point of sale terminal, and Cash App is the money transmitter app. And they were fighting for resources, and they had a lot of redundancies amongst these two different facets of Block. And so now they're more streamlined. But Block is one of the best Bitcoin companies in America, right? Every single facet of the company is pushing Bitcoin forward in some regard. You can buy Bitcoin on Cash App. You can spend your Bitcoin with Square Terminal. They got a mining rig with Proto, and they've got a hardware wallet with BitKey. So they're doing a lot for the Bitcoin community and pushing Bitcoin as everyday money forward much more than any other company in America. So power to Block. And power to all those people who got let go. I think a lot of them, they were treated quite well. They got a large severance package, and now they can go out and use these AI tools and build their own Bitcoin company, hopefully.
Yeah, I was happy to see he was pretty generous with the severance. That's nice, So happy.
It is. And so, but this is something that a lot of people might be facing right now, is being let go because of AI. And if you have Bitcoin when you're let go, you are in a better place. And the thing is, you don't necessarily have to sell that Bitcoin. And why is that? Because of our friends over at Arch. Arch is the world's leading destination for Bitcoin-backed loans. Arch provides world-class security and white glove service, so you never have to sell your Bitcoin. If you're listening to this, you did this hard part. You stacked Bitcoin, you held for years, and you didn't panic sell. But sometimes life happens. Of course, you got taxes, new opportunities, or say you got let go and you've got Bitcoin but don't want to sell it. That's where Arch comes in. Think of it like a flexible line of credit with rates starting as low as 8.5% APR. You borrow what you need, repay anytime, and only pay interest on what you use, all without triggering a tax event. The best part, the Bitcoin stays yours. Arch has a strict no rehypothecation policy, so your collateral is never lent out. It's held in a qualified, insured, bankruptcy remote custody with full transparency. Go today to archlending.com. That's archlending.com/daily-stack, and you get a better deal on that APR. Yes. Have you ever taken a loan out against your Bitcoin?
Yeah, I actually borrowed with Arch.
Oh, you have? Nice. Are you a happy customer?
They sent me back my Bitcoin after I paid it back. So yeah, I'm a happy customer. I can. It's funny how all this stuff connects today. Yeah, they were fine. I mean, I didn't. I had some nights where I didn't sleep as well, probably, to be honest. With I don't know if I'll do it again. We'll see. But just be careful. Be careful.
Be careful. Always be careful. But I'm glad to hear it all ended up well. That's awesome.
Yeah, you could just walk off with my Bitcoin, and but he didn't. So.
They did it. They gave it right back to you. Amazing.
I'm happy.
All right. Well, we got one last story here to cover. And of course, that is the thing that is taking up all the headlines across the world. U.S. and Israel launch military strikes on Iran, sending tokenized gold and safe haven assets higher as Bitcoin initially plunged down to $63,000, but is now up over $69,000. So what do you think this means? Do you think that the world is finally recognizing Bitcoin for being the neutral reserve asset that it actually is, and something that people can flee to in times of crisis? Or is this just a Monday pump because people think that this whole entire thing will be over quickly?
I would like to think that people realize Bitcoin is, the best money on earth, and that you want more. You want to hold more of it, especially when the world is losing its mind as it has been in the last few years. But I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, these price movements are not, to me, they're not dramatic enough to maybe even mean anything. I mean, I'm glad that it's up. Obviously, I think that's nice, and I'm glad that when this all went down on Saturday, that the price didn't dump to 40K, which I'm sure a lot of people would have expected if you'd polled people and said, hey, if a war starts with Iran, where's the price of Bitcoin going to be? I think many people would have expected more of a sell-off. So that was encouraging, and it seems like perhaps we've hit a bottom here, but you never know with Bitcoin. I wouldn't make any predictions on where the price will be, other than I think up. For me, it's always more likely to go up than down because that's been the trend, right? So you don't want to be trying to pick the direction of the market. You just want to hold. So.
And do you think that this will be a protracted conflict? Do you think that we're going to be at this for a while, or are you going to be a Trump special where he gets in and gets out and hopefully can save face and claim a victory, even if nothing really has been resolved? What do you think is the end game here?
Yeah, I mean, I do appreciate that. And for the engagements the United States hasn't been involved in, it's mostly been air so far. They bombed in Nigeria, they bombed in Iran now twice. Where else have they bombed? I mean, yeah. So I hope this is the end of it. It's hard to say, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've got the Strait of Hormuz there, right? And 20% of the world's oil production flows through there on like a daily basis. So any conflict that lasts more than a week or so is going to have serious implications. And it does seem as if we are entered into an era of realpolitik, and these conflicts are popping up all over the place. And so I think it matters more than ever that you have Bitcoin in your own custody, that you're able to take it and move with it wherever you need to, whenever you need to. And I think it's during these times that Bitcoin really shines, right? Whether it was the financial crisis, when Bitcoin was born, Cyprus, when they were seizing bank accounts during the European financial crisis, COVID, when they were printing trillions of dollars, and now today where conflict is just popping up everywhere. So do you think that it shows Bitcoin's brilliance in times of great panic, right?
Yeah, you said it well. I mean, Bitcoin is money that you can, write down 12 words or memorize 12 words and walk across a border or take a flight, and no one would be able to stop you from doing that. And you could take your wealth with you out of a war-torn country or out of a bad situation, regardless of the reason for that bad situation. So, yeah, I mean, Bitcoin is an amazing tool, and I can't imagine what this world would look like today if we didn't have it. I think it would be a far worse place. And we still got a lot of work to do, but it's great to see that Bitcoin is resilient, through these times, through these wars, through these conflicts and issues. And so, yeah, I have confidence we will make it through.
We shall overcome with BTC in our wallets. Robert, I want to thank you so much for joining us. We're almost at the end of our time here. I want to give a shout out to CoinCube, your site, your company, coincube.io. Tell people a little bit more about this before we head out.
Sure. Yeah. So basically I was looking, kind of scratching my own itch, wanting to find a good solution for multi-sig custody and also for inheritance for my family now that I'm a dad. And I found a wallet called Liana, which I liked a lot, open source project, but it had some things that I felt were missing, and the UX I felt needed some work. So I just decided to fork it and try to build more what is in my head from that foundation. So it has a multi-sig wallet with inheritance path. So basically you can have your regular spend path with a couple of keys, and then you could have an inheritance path that only opens up after, let's say, a year. And then you could give a key or keys to family members, and they can have that access to those funds if you do pass away and they can't get the original keys or the basic keys for that. So there's that. We added in a liquid, we're calling it the liquid wallet, but it's the Breeze SDK, the Breeze liquid SDK. So it's basically, it holds LBTC when you have a balance, but you can spend using Lightning. You can also spend directly to Bitcoin addresses, so it's very convenient. We have a buy-sell feature that we tried to integrate with Meld, which is a provider. If you use the Blockstream wallet, they have the same provider there. It doesn't work great in all jurisdictions. We've had some issues. So I'm looking now at, we're planning to integrate with Mostro.network. If you've followed that project, it's a Lightning peer-to-peer protocol for buying and selling Bitcoin. And I think in the end, I'm really not happy to think about my clients having to KYC. And I want to push and encourage Bitcoiners to use Bitcoin in a non-KYC manner. And so that's the plan, is we're going to add that in. And we've got a bunch more coming. We're building a keychain companion app, which would basically allow people to hold keys and essentially set up inheritance more easily, where like they can send an email to a family member, they can download the application on their phone, add a key, and then have the inheritance key right there connected to the vault. So we're just trying to make it stupid simple to use Bitcoin and to make sure it can be passed on correctly and safely and so on and so forth. So check it out. Lots to come, but it's a good start, I think. So thank you.
Cheers.
Really fun being here, Rob.
Yeah, no, this was a great conversation. Great to catch up after meeting you in El Salvador a couple of years ago. Really fun. So everybody check out CoinCube. And thank you for joining Bitcoin News Weekly. We're live 12:30 p.m. Up next, we got more coming on the Daily Stack. We got our man Sean hosting another show about Bitcoin ETFs and the flows, everything that's going on. Got some great guests on that one as well. We're going to hit up the 5-minute timer, get you guys situated, and a new show is coming right up. Thank you once again, Robert, and thank you everybody for tuning in. This is Robert himself, Robert Wallace for Bitcoin News and the Daily Stack. Until next week, so long, everybody. It's been real.